When it comes to communication, there are many things that have to align together in order for a message to come across clearly to the person receiving it. In the case of communicating with children, it's even more crucial that we're aware of the many things that impact what we say and how they receive it. One specific aspect that greatly impacts the way we speak to children is our tone of voice. Being older than they are, we usually are more prone to use our tone of voice to our advantage, and often this is done so subconsciously. Let's take a moment and think about our tone of voice when we speak to children. Would it be considered a positive tone, a negative tone, a neutral tone, maybe a happy tone or an angry tone? Whatever the tone may be, let's think about what the implications of those tones are and how might they affect the way a child receives what we have to say. Picture this. You're a child, and you're interacting with an adult in your life. You could be playing, or doing some art, or maybe having a snack. Something happens, and either you break a toy, or you spill some paint, or you drop your plate of food on the floor. In this moment, you're being bombarded by different emotions and feelings based on what's going on. The adult then turns to you and begins to scold you for allowing this to happen. They blame you for breaking the toy, saying that you're being careless, or they make you feel bad for spilling the paint and saying that you're not painting anymore. Or in the case of the plate of food on the floor, they scold you for being wasteful and say that you're all done eating. Regardless of which scenario you see yourself in, take a moment to think about how you feel and what message you are receiving about the situation, about the adult, and about yourself in this moment. One thing that is difficult for children to recognize in moments such as these is that the adult is feeling something as well. The adult is working through their own emotions as well. And so, we have a situation where there are two parties involved, each with their own emotions, each working through what they're feeling, yet not necessarily having the space to understand them and bring their understanding into this interaction. This is why our tone of voice is so important. And more so than that, the tone of voice that we choose to use. Ultimately, as older individuals and as individuals who have hopefully had a space to be able to understand themselves, understand their emotion, their own predispositions, the way they do things, we have an upper hand when it comes to these situations. Granted, it's not always easy to realize the upper hand that we have when our focus is on the broken toy, the spilled paint, or the spilled plate of food. Nonetheless, we do have an upper hand. And with that, we have an opportunity to exemplify and support children through our interactions together. In all three situations, something unfortunate has happened, and now we need to deal with it. The beauty of this is that we get to choose how we are going to deal with it. And with that choice, we get to choose our tone of voice that we use when we communicate with the child in this moment. Now, our tone of voice can take many, many different directions. And in recognizing that, it's not fair for me to say that one direction is better than the other. Instead, I want to invite us to take a step back before we think about which tone is best, to think about a foundation that would then lead to the tone of voice we choose to use. This foundation is the purpose and intention of what we want to say to the child. Maybe we really are angry and upset that this happened, and so we'll choose a tone of voice that is appropriate for this response. Maybe we're worried about the child and how they feel in this moment, and so we'll choose a tone of voice that is appropriate for this. Whichever end we find ourselves on, I want to invite us to take on a posture and an intention that focuses on supporting and facilitating the child through this interaction. I don't mean to say that the broken toy, the spilled paint, or the spilled plate of food is not important, but these are things that have already happened. And we have a choice to approach these situations where we'll either scold the child or we'll hold the child accountable and help them understand why this is the case. So let's go back to either ends of how we feel. First, let's start with being angry and frustrated at the situation. We can tell these things to the child and help them understand how we're feeling. We tell them that it's not fun or pleasant when things break, when things spill, when food is wasted, and it makes us very upset. Yet at the same time, it means that they don't get to play with this toy, they may not get to paint anymore, or they don't get to eat this food because it's dirty. After you've been able to share how you're feeling, it's important then to check in with the child and ask them how they're feeling. Ask them for clarity as to what happened in this situation. This way, you're able to allow the child to know that you're upset, while showing that you're concerned for them. This way, you create a space where both you and the child can come together to understand better what is going on. This space then acts as a guideline for you to hold each other accountable to your feelings, actions, and ultimately your decision of how you'll move forward. Now, on the flip side, if your response is that you're really concerned about the child and you really want to make sure they're okay, that's all right, but you don't want to coddle them so that they don't take responsibility for what has happened. And so likewise, you want to share your emotions with them. You want to let them know that you're concerned about this toy, that it's broken. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they'll get cut or hurt by it. You want to tell them about the paint and the food and whether or not they got wet or they stained their clothes, or maybe they spilled their food because it was too hot or something else happened. Once again, you want to take the time to share your concern, share your feelings, so the child understands where you're coming from. Then, ask the child for clarity, once again, of how they're feeling. In both ways, you want to be clear about how you're feeling, you want to be clear about the situation at hand, and ultimately, you want to be clear about creating space for the child to feel comfortable and safe to share how they're feeling. And so, as we take a step back from just recognizing our tone of voice to moving on to our tone of choice and why we need to choose it, then this will help us to better support, facilitate, and nurture spaces where children feel confident to watch, think, be.